What's up, y'all? We are back at it with the K-Swap and the Datsun. So we have our K24 A2 engine that we're mating up to the 370Z transmission today. And I'm gonna accomplish that by using the Collins Flywheel adapter kit. So that gives me an adapter plate with this custom flywheel. And then for the clutch, I went with a Z-Speed Stage 1 clutch. That's an organic material that should be able to handle the power of some light boost on this K24 A2. Now I've already mocked up the adapter plate and the transmission in a previous video, but today we're going all out. We're gonna be assembling things to stick together for good. In the last video, I got the engine in good shape for the swap, upgrading the VTC gear and changing out the timing components. Since then, I put on the K-tuned idler pulley and the alternator. And if you're missing your alternator bolts like I am, these are the part numbers. You need one of these and two of these guys. For a lot of people doing swaps with the 350Z or 370Z transmission, you need to change out the shifter. The stock shifter that comes with it puts the shifter pretty far back. I took some measurements when I first mocked up the engine to get an idea what shifter to go with. There's a lot of options out there, but one of the more reputable ones is Serial 9 with the CD999 Shifter. So this is a really good product. It's been around for quite a while, so a lot of people are using this setup. So one of the main benefits of using the CD999 is it allows you to put the shifter further forward than most other options on the market, at least that I've seen. So with this, we can have the shifter 29.5 inches from the bell housing, and it is adjustable. So we can be 29.5 to 33.5. So that gives us some adjustability to make sure the shifter lines up how we want to in the car. Serial 9 has a detailed video on installing this shifter, but it's fairly straightforward. I had trouble getting into fifth gear, but that's where the adjustment part comes in. Loosening the top plate, putting the transmission into fifth, then sliding the plate to be flushed against the shifter. That was actually really easy. Now it's time to get this engine and transmission mated up. These should all be 47 foot-pounds. For this bolt on the back, since it's threading into the plate, I'll probably do less than that because the thread engagement is only like 1/2 inch. And there is one more bolt that holds the plate to the engine, and that is for the starter. So we just got to make sure that this starter clears the bell housing when we put the 370Z trans on. But I think I tested this before and it fit fine, so hopefully it's good. But we'll find out soon enough. One important point is if you have the K24 A2 out of an automatic car, it has a harmonic balancer thing on here for the automatic transmission, and these flywheel bolts, or whatever you call them for the automatic, are shorter. So you need to go buy the bolts for a manual transmission on the TSX, which is this part number right here. You'll need a 12-point socket for these guys, not the normal hex socket that probably most of us have in our garage. So to the hardware store. To attach the flywheel, I do a star pattern and slowly tighten the bolts down, doing a couple passes to make sure it gets tightened down evenly. These are going to go to 76 foot-pounds. And on the Collins flywheel, they go ahead and press fit this bushing in for you, which is awesome. To attach the pressure plate to this flywheel, I got some pressure plate bolts for a 370Z, and these were the ones I found recommended online. It says for a RB26, which I wish, and this is TM for transmission side. The OEM torque on a 370Z flywheel, I believe, is 29 foot-pounds, and you do that at 2 stages. You do one round at 11 foot-pounds for all the bolts, and then you come back and do another round at the 29. And since I have an aluminum flywheel, they actually recommend 25 foot-pounds for that. And that matches up with the ARP specs as well, so that's what I'll go with. I'll be a little OCD on these guys, so I'm gonna put a tiny amount of lithium grease on this flange right here, and then I'll put some Loctite on each bolt. I probably should have put some grease on the heads of the flywheel bolts as well when I put those in, but I think it'll be fine. I'm just gonna use the tiniest amount on here. And again, the grease on the head of the bolt is just to help it slide against the metal as you tighten it, so that way the torque setting is more accurate. So there's 3 sets of 3 bolts. So there's 3 here, there's 3 up top, and then there's 3 over here. The way you tighten it according to Nissan is you do the middle bolt of each set, and then you do the right bolt of each set, and then the left. There's a little sag with this alignment tool, so I will push it upwards as I put the pressure plate on. Once the clutch is centered, I'm steadily pressing against the pressure plate to stop the clutch from drooping while I hand tighten the bolts. Once hand tightened, the clutch shouldn't move anymore. Now I tighten down the pressure plate with multiple passes to symmetrically put pressure against the diaphragm spring. You can see the spring contracting inward here, putting pressure against the clutch. Now, one main reason that a lot of people go with the 350Z trans versus the 370Z is because the 370Z switched over to the CSC, or concentric slave cylinder. That basically means that the throwout bearing is all right here on the inside, integrated with the actual slave cylinder right here on the shaft of the transmission. So this is kind of a weak point on the 370Z trans because this part right here actually is plastic, and there's aftermarket options to convert this to like an all metal concentric slave cylinder, or to go with a traditional fork and throwout bearing setup. But I'm going to keep mine stock for now. I think the CSCs can last quite a while as long as they're not in crazy demanding environments. Then down the road I can upgrade this part if I need to. Now I'm going to put a very light amount of grease on these splines into the transmission, but I will keep it a very light coat with that lithium grease. And this surface here will be touching the pressure plate. There's several sources online saying not to put grease on the splines of the clutch, but the Nissan manual actually recommends it. So I'm just going to put a very small amount in here to grease it just a little bit. I did buy a couple extra bolts to fill in all of the holes into the adapter plate, but Colin says you don't need to fill in every single bolt hole, but better safe than sorry for me, so I just bought a few of these. I'll share the bolts that I use to go around the entire transmission with an image, and you can use those if you want, or just use the ones that Collins includes. With all the bolts just snug, now we can go ahead and take them out, put thread locker on them, and torque them down. The factory spec for the big bolts is 55 foot-pounds that go into the engine. But since we're using a slightly thinner adapter plate that's aluminum, and it does feel a little softer, I'll probably lighten that up a little bit and maybe do 45 or 50 foot-pounds. You can see it doesn't get 100% thread engagement, so definitely don't want to over torque these guys and strip out the threads on the adapter plate. 45 feels good. I'm going to do these smaller bolts to 34 foot-pounds, which is the factory spec for the 370Z. Now these bolts back here I will not Loctite because I want to get a custom piece of sheet metal made that will cover up the flywheel. But these bolts on the back side, according to Nissan, are 34 foot-pounds as well. So that's it for this video. We should be ready to put the engine and transmission in the car very soon and get the mounts made up. So stay tuned for more to come. Thanks for watching. Bye, y'all.